Good morning, my friends. It's Carpo here. Well, it's a somewhat rainy day here. It's been sunny for quite a while, so we're getting a little bit of rain on the garden. The new roof is holding up. I don't often make videos in the morning, but usually in the afternoon. But I've been thinking about some things lately. Go figure. What does it mean to be an American? You know, it's one of those questions you'll often hear. But this is more about how America is destroying itself from the inside out through mismanagement of time, of funds, and a general lack of regard for the populace, if you will. You know, I really almost started this video over just now, but I'm like, no matter how I try to start this video, I'm going to end up starting it the same way, just unsure of exactly how to even get my point across about the ambivalence I feel toward just life in general, humans, I should say, in general, living in a society. It's like one day I feel like we can, you know, we can all work together, and that most people have good hearts and most people mean well, and the next day I think, how can people be so damn stupid? And when the internet became available to a majority of the people, I perhaps delusionally thought that with more access to information, people would be able to stand up for their own rights, stand up for what they believe, stand up for their values. And they have been, except for it's really easy to mislead people and misdirect people and point them at the wrong enemy. I guess my example would be that one of the only things that separates dictatorships from, complete obscurity has always been a media. A free media is crucial to any type of democracy. And the minute you say that, people say, but we're not a democracy, we're a republic. And that's really the point I'm making here. It comes down to semantics. People want to argue whether we're in a republic or a democracy. They will defend one point against another, even if they argued the opposite point the day before, whatever fits the situation. But the minute you dismiss journalists as liars, and you outright stop believing all media, then you're in their hands. Then you're in the hands of the people who want to be able to control and shape your opinion. That said, the media has completely failed us. They will take any small story and blow it out of proportion. They will throw their own spin on things, and I am definitely not standing up for the journalism that we have in America, which is very lacking. But there were people like Walter Cronkite. There were people out there who actually, also tons of journalists who went out in the field, went to Vietnam, and today we just don't see that. So the media really has earned a horrible reputation. But as I said, it's the only thing that really separates us between complete ignorance is having people reporting on something. What's changed today is, as I said previously in a video, we are now the reporters. We are not in consumers, we're prosumers. We are manufacturing the media, and we're growing. The more people that have access to devices, live uploads, the world's changing. And in that process, there's just so much to say. It shows a lot about people. Even though we have the information at our fingertips, we're not willing to look at it because it might counter what we want to believe. And so not only are journalists the enemies, but scientists have become the enemies in a lot of people's eyes. The scientists are all lying to you. They're all in cahoots. And that's a sad thing too, because there are some bad journalists and there are some bad scientists out there. But when you distrust all experts in your society, then who do you believe? And I think it was summed up well on a documentary I watched recently, where they asked exactly that question to this lady who runs some website. It was on the Flat Earth documentary, I think, and said, well, what would it take to get you to believe an expert or believe somebody on this story? And she said, I think from here on out, I'm not going to believe anything unless I'm there and I see it myself. If we all thought that way, we would be in quite a shameful way. I would say, Imagine if every religious person took that approach. We all believe the experts. If you're a religious person, for example, and you don't trust the scientists, and let's say, what if you didn't trust your own bishops? What if you didn't trust your own history or your own people? Humans are flawed and we make mistakes. So I'm not going to get into a religious aspect there. I just wanted to point that out, that a lot of people don't want to trust science because it counters what they want to believe. But it's a double standard because we refuse to look at things with the same critical lens as others. There's this idea that the scientists and the journalists are all out there to try to fool you. And a lot of them are just trying to make money, of course. But who really has the gold toilets? Are scientists, the multi-billionaires? Or journalists, the multi-billionaires? No, the people that own the companies are. But you have to remember there are individuals out there who want to do the right thing. Unfortunately, the problem we have with U.S. media is they're not allowed to talk about certain things. I just want to keep clarifying that I'm not defending our media, which is horrible. Journalism is much better in some other places, but it's much worse in others too. Motivation is everything. And often a scientist or a journalist, their motivation is to explore and understand and reveal things. And there's always somebody to point the finger and say, no, you're wrong. And for people who are unable to do the research themselves or unable to understand what they're reading, it's easy to just believe that a majority of scientists are lying to you. And this is how we get into the idea that we think that all the space agencies are lying to us, and this is what sucks people into like the flat earther realm. Not any actual evidence for it, but a distrust, and it all comes down to distrust in others. Another byproduct of this is our short attention span now, and this is crucial. We refuse to look at things that take too long. And I know this because I've always enjoyed reading, I've always enjoyed learning things in long form, but I find myself sucked into the same realm as everyone else, where I want quick clips, I want to understand something quickly. The whole pop science, give it to me in 5 minutes idea, is not enough. So if I really want to understand something, I pick up a book and read it and try to understand it as best I can. But even then, I find my attention span slipping. And that's why I still do these long-form videos like this, because I can keep my attention focused for a period of time. But I realize a lot of people out there don't like the long-form because then they have to focus, or, it's hard. But it's hard to know how to maintain ourselves as humans in this current atmosphere, this world. We're not prepared for this. Genetically, whether you believe in evolution or not, our ancestors didn't have to deal with the same kind of crap that we deal with today. And it's putting a lot of pressure, a lot of anxiety on us, that the anxieties that we've always had, but now we've placed them on other things. And there's a whole world of pharmaceuticals that want to tell you that depression and anxiety and all these, feeling bad in general is something that's totally related to this modern day and age, but it's not. It's something that we've always had. It's just that we're not afraid of tigers attacking or our villages being raided. We're more afraid of somebody kidnapping the kids, or what's in the vaccines, or what's in the drinking water, and we don't know who to trust, and we don't know what to believe. And every time you try to understand a story, there's another story to counter it, and you have to refer back to your common sense, and then you say common sense isn't fact, it's not the truth. I'll give you an example of how we're failing and what this is doing to this country, where I live, the U.S. Because of this mistrust, it's causing a division, a deep rift between us. And this rift is causing us to fight amongst ourselves rather than improving our country. Over the past few decades, we've always pointed the finger at China, saying, you're doing things wrong. Oh, look at them, they're communist. Oh, look at them, they spy on their people. Look at what they're doing, telling them, hey, you guys should allow your kids to have, your people to have more than one kid, and this one-child policy is bad, and it's bad for China. And guess what China did? What they've done for thousands of years, calmly nodded and said, thank you for your advice, and they waited us out. And now, with the Belt Road Initiative and the Made in China 2020 by 2025 policy, which if you're not aware of those, it's pretty fascinating. China wants to be self-sufficient within the next decade, and they can probably do it. And the U.S. did have that capability. The U.S. is exporting our wheat and our soy to China, and say Trump put these embargoes on metals from China, which yay, thinks that helps some American steel companies. Unfortunately, the other American companies that use the steel can't afford to buy it, and a lot of them had to go out of business and lay people off. But on top of that, China put tariffs on soy and wheat. So they said, we're just going to grow our own. And they're ruthless. They're completely ruthless. I'm not agreeing with their policies or what they do or how they do it and how they implement it. I would never want to live in China. But they're smart. Oh, they outsmarted us big time. Because while we were sitting here groveling and arguing about politics and arguing about what's right and wrong and religion and gun rights, they just rolled right over us, kept on going. And the only thing that made America the superpower was our innovation, and on top of that, our power, our might. But might doesn't win the day anymore. So we're still ignorantly thinking that having a bigger military is going to save the day. If you took half the military budget and dumped it into the infrastructure, we could fix roads, bridges, you know, and on top of that, still have more than enough to defend this country. But no, because there's too much money. And this is where we separate the idea of what America really is from the idea of what we think it is. I've always thought of America as a staging ground for wars for other European countries. Kind of a scapegoat, like, I'll just use America, and it's not exactly, of course it's not that simple, but when America goes under, we will continue to deny it, because we're still groveling and fighting amongst the experts and who to trust. If somebody says, hey, we're in for some dire consequences, we will ignore it. That happened in 2008. Guess what? We had a complete crash because of horrible management, and then we bailed out these banks, and we're barely staying afloat right now. China is doing what we should have been doing for the whole time, in other words, improving their economy, improving their infrastructure. Over there, they imprison anybody who talks against the government. But over here, we imprison whistleblowers as well, the same way, right? It seems like it's okay to reveal information about certain things, but it's not if it's something that you want to protect. In other words, we can't even trust our own social media networks over here anymore. I mean, with Facebook collecting user data the way they do, I mean, even when I cannot believe people still use Facebook, and how much of the system we're forced to use. In other words, not only at one time you had to have a bank account, sometimes you have to have a credit card in order to rent a car, right? Or to purchase a motel room for a night. You have to have a card to put it on, and so you have to be in the banking system. On top of that, if you want to even sign up for social media, you have to have a phone, so you can have a number so they can confirm your identity. And then you have to upload a photo of yourself so you can be in the system. And we all feel like we're basically just being marketed to all the time. And it's true. So back to what's going on in China, we're blaming China for a lot of this, talking about how China's spying on us or China's making stuff too cheap, but we're the ones that demand it. And the interesting concept of how many American companies are manufacturing in China, it's American companies making this garbage that we consume. But it's China where they make it because the regulations are lighter. And one last note about this is funny, is that the U.S. government's just been steaming over the fact that China's been hacking and basically telling American companies, you can come do business here, but you have to give us rights to your software, or you have to give us your technology, basically. And any normal, right-thinking country would want to do the same thing. It's this idea that we're trying to save technology for ourselves. I mean, isn't that what life's all about, is sharing technology and moving it forward? For all countries to use and all people? Yeah, but that's just not how it is, because we're selfish and we want to hoard it and greed it for ourselves. So another interesting thing, and this is kind of on the note of religion, is something that I've found, and this is my only in defense of religion. For people who believe in religion, it gives them something to worship, something to idolize, something to understand the world around them. It can become a problem when we start dismissing others, of course. But what we see in places like China, or places where a religion is banned or not allowed, that people worship their leaders. You look at North Korea, you look at China. They worship their leaders the way they would worship a deity. They worship the state the way they would worship a heaven. Or, it's basically, it seems that humans have an innate, something within our nature that makes us want to, it makes us want to believe in something greater. And if that thing isn't there, then we make it. We can make it out of the state. We can make it out of anything. Some people just worship the earth or become, I don't know. I don't know where else to go on that note. It's just, so what's my point? To kind of wrap this up, talked a little bit about the distrust in experts, the distrust in scientists and journalists, China moving forward. And I think the idea that I'm trying to convey is that we have to stop with the nationalism and this idea that one nation is greater than another. What it's done is it's allowed other nations to roll right over us in the meantime. And it's not about who's on top. It's not about who has more. Even though that's in our nature, it's something that we inherently want. We want to have more than the next person. So understanding a little bit about our psychology can help us better cope with life circumstances. But letting your ego go. I mean, stop with the whole American cheeseburger flag bullshit. The idea that we have some great culture to protect as Americans as a whole. Because I'll tell you, I can't see that. I can't see the culture. I have completely different cultural interests than the people in the South, and even the people in California, or the people in New York. And that's okay. That's what this nation was founded on. The ability for individual groups to do whatever they like, to be free from persecution, to be free from government intervention and control, to have the freedom to religion. And that means that if you really are an American and you stand by this country for what it represents, then it's time to stop telling people to, well, I'm just going to leave it there. There's a lot of bullshit, short-handed racism out there that, it just seems to be getting worse. And when you're fighting with your own neighbors because of the color of their skin or, what they believe, then, like I said, we've always got to find an enemy. And the greatest enemy sometimes is ourselves. Yeah. Battle that enemy, and then the rest pale in comparison. Talk to y'all later. Thanks for coming to Carpo's channel, yo. Yeah.
You know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it.